some time ago, there are actually two concepts under creativity that I have to speak to you about, right? And so, two things. I have actually reserved both of them for the last week, because most of the time we don't even bother about them being part of creativity. I don't know why. First of all, the two things that I'm going to speak about are not even taught in schools. I'm hoping that all of you who are listening to this will be determined to teach it in a school. Right? What are we talking about? We're talking about the tools, the creativity canvas. We already saw it before. And we said that all this is contained in the creativity canvas. Many of you will now start including biomimicry. But what are those two things from within the canvas that I'm going to speak about now? What are those two things? Any guesses? That is absolutely critical to thinking, to creativity. But we don't bother at all. And all of us, and both these skills, we have it with us. We have it with us in abundance, but we don't bother about it. What are they? What are they? Any guesses? The first one I'm going to talk about is imagination. Imagine. No pun on the word. Imagine. We don't even think about the power of imagination. How can you do biomimicry if you don't have imagination? What is imagination? Imagination is the ability all of us have. The ability to all of us have to imagine anything at all. Anything. Right now, while speaking to you, I'm imagining I'm standing on top of the moon. I'm sure many of you have traveled with me now. And I'm imagining that I'm meeting my parents from 8 years ago. I'm actually imagining talking to my mother. I'm very happy because she's no more, and so I'm very happy I'm speaking to her now. I can imagine speaking to her. I can imagine my life 5 years from now, enjoying biomimicry in the midst of thousands of biomimics like you. I have been imagining, right? So imagination is the ability to take your mind, to travel with your mind anywhere you want to go. So when you are solving a problem, such a big problem as the UNSCG, if you cannot imagine the most brilliant solution, if you cannot visualize that the solution that you're offering is going to change the world and how it will change the world, if you can imagine that, can you imagine how much of an inspiration that will be? And it's so simple, right? The only thing about imagination you should remember is set a context to it. That's all. Just say, for the next 5 minutes, I will imagine living underwater. So living underwater becomes the context. That is how you control your imagination. Otherwise, imagination goes like wildfire. I will imagine living underwater. I will imagine me having 1,000 friends. I will imagine being a biomimic. I will imagine teaching biomimicry to thousands and thousands of people. That's all it is. So it's a very short lecture, but a powerful lecture that you will never forget, saying, before I start my creativity journey, can I imagine my solution? Can I travel? Can I take my solution and travel with my solution so that I can see it before I start? Many sports people do what is called visualization of their game. They can visualize the entire game in their head. So imagination is also fun, of course. I'm going to show you some exercises. Look at this. Try and solve it. Call your friends, call your parents, and tell them to solve this. Imagine you could ask a paper plane to deliver a message. What would it say? To whom would you send it? Who would you send it to? I will send the paper plane to Shakespeare. And what will I say? I will say, Mr. Shakespeare, what was going on in your head when you wrote Hamlet? I want to know from him directly. I've already started speaking to Shakespeare, right? So that's all fun exercise. At the same time, powerful exercise, but you know that you can start to imagine the solution that you want. Let's see one more exercise. Imagine you could turn into an animal or a bird for a day. What will you become and why? It's a fun exercise for children, right? Children actually do this exercise very well. We tried it with a couple of children and a couple of schools, and they just go crazy, imagining themselves like a monkey or imagining themselves like a donkey or whatever. And why? Why? Because they love to be one. And now that we are learning biomimicry, it's fun. It's fun to think like the animal, like the lotus leaf, right? Imagination. Think of a statue. So you're passing by and suddenly a statue comes alive. And what will be the conversation? Hi, statue. How are you? Hi, Shiva. How are you? Imagine that conversation. Don't worry about people thinking you've gone crazy, but you're starting to use that skill, right? You're starting to visualize things. You're starting to see things before they actually happen. And for instance, my friend suffered from kidney disease, and she had lots of problems with dialysis. So I'm asking my students at IIT to imagine a solution where you don't need to have dialysis in order to purify your blood. So the minute I set that imagination in their head, they start to imagine solutions. And therefore, I want to end now. I want to stop this lecture by saying one very, very, very important thing, which all of us will remember. And that is, if something has not been invented in the world, it is because it has not been imagined. And that is the power of imagination in the context of creativity. Why are we not living under the water? Why? There's so much of water, right? So much of water. We're constantly living on land and polluting the earth. Why are we not living underwater? Because we have not imagined it. So start your imagination journey now. Just like the power of imagination, there is one more skill that all of us have, but we never use it. I don't know why. We use it, of course, but we don't know we are using it, or we never learn how to use it better, or we are not taught about it in schools, colleges, and all that. I think it should be part of the curriculum, right? It should. What skill am I talking about? What skill? It starts with the word C. CURIOSITY. Curiosity. We understand what is curiosity. All of us are curious about several things. We can't stop watching a suspense movie because we want to know what will happen. But do we learn curiosity? Do we practice curiosity? That's it. Curiosity is the fuel for discovery, inquiry, and learning. Being curious about an organism, what does it do? Being curious about a UNSCG, saying why did that UNSCG even happen? Being curious about the targets and the measures. Being curious about our solutions. Being curious about what are all the organisms that are solving the problem. Curiosity. So powerful, right? But we don't do it. Do we allocate time saying, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be curious about this whole thing? Look at this very picture. Look at the number of questions that we can ask. I did this exercise recently with my students. What we did was, I actually surprised them. I showed them a video. Of the caddisfly. That's a lovely video of the caddisfly, CADDIS fly. Just look it up. I showed them the video. They are all waiting, expecting that I'm going to ask them about the video, some information about the video. What is the caddisfly? And all that. At the end of the video, you know what I said? I need each one of you to ask me a question about the video. And we're not used to that, right? So they said, what? I said, ask a question about the video. You have these 5 friends, right? 5 interrogation friends. What, why, how, when, and where. I said, use it. And they started asking, which means when you ask questions, what is it? It's about being curious. You don't have to know all the answers, I said. You just learn to ask questions. That's all. So, for instance, in this very picture, what are the questions you have? Okay, one question is, what is the cat looking at? Because it's very dark. The other question is, what metal is this? What material is this made of? The other is, I see something like a broken door. Is that broken or is it because of something else? Where is this place? Look, already 5 questions. Normally, you would have just flipped through this picture, right? I'm saying no. I'm saying let's practice curiosity by actually learning to ask questions and being curious. What is curiosity? Look at this picture. This picture is by Leonardo da Vinci. He's trying to make a picture of what he calls the flying machine. 500 years ago, he was curious as to how birds fly. And he started asking questions the way we ask now. And this is the result of the drawing is the result of his thinking. 500 years ago, he imagined, so now imagination is also coming. He imagined how birds fly. He was curious about how they fly. He combined imagination and curiosity and came up with this flying machine. And today, flying is such a part of our lives. Such a part of our lives. But 500 years ago, he was able to ask those questions. What is the characteristics of curiosity? A curious person always seeks information, right? Always wanting to know more and more information. I want to know this, I want to know that, I want to know this. For instance, in this case, how is it that the owl is able to tilt its head so much? Why does the owl stay awake in the night? What is it that makes the owl be called as a wise bird? Why is the owl's beak so small? Why are the owl's eyes very, very small compared to the size of its face or head? What are the different types of owls in the world? What are the different species of owls? Where are owls most found? All I'm doing is seeking information. The only thing you remember is, if you seek information, seek it with the relevance of what you want from the conversation, what you want from the picture. Here, if my goal is to learn about the owl, then all these questions are relevant. If my goal is to learn about the function of that beak, then I'll ask questions around the beak and not the other questions. Asking questions, we just let it no, right? Actually, one of the things I want to try is to make my students write an exam where they will only be asked to write questions and no answers. And I'll give good marks for the people who ask the best questions. Exploring alternatives. Now, when you're curious, you are starting to ask yourself, what else can I use this for? For instance, an orange. I can ask myself, what else can I use the orange for? What are the different uses for the orange? One is, of course, to eat it, which is the normal way. Other is to use it like a ball for juggling. The other is to use it for throwing at someone. It could be to protect yourself. It could be to make juice out of it. When you're thirsty, you can drink it. It could be to attract someone's attention. It could be to leave a trail, right? You can take small pieces of orange and keep leaving a trail so that people who want to find you can find you easily. Look, I already have 6 uses for orange. So curiosity is very useful for exploring alternatives, other ways of doing things. So many times things are hidden from us, right? We don't really see those things. So curiosity, asking questions, helps us see what we cannot see. When you experience, curiosity is also about experiencing. For instance, the suspense movie I said, right? Now, when you're curious, you actually become the detective in the movie and experience the pain of not being able to find the person who killed, right? Who murdered. There are 4 dimensions of curiosity. I'll quickly explain what they are. I think what you should do is see the website, for instance, merckgroup.com. You go to the website and learn it yourself. I'm just introducing curiosity to you so that you know that there is something called curiosity and you start to practice curiosity more and more. So what are the dimensions of curiosity? 4 dimensions. One is joyous exploration, getting pleasure from exploration. So therefore, curiosity for the sake of curiosity. I want to know, that's all. There is no reason to know. I just want to know. I just want to know how the remote works. I want to know how this laptop works. I want to know who is occupying that house. I want to know for the sake of knowing. Deprivation sensitivity. Recognize a gap in the knowledge and seek answers. This is exactly what I said about the detective movie, right? The murder mystery. You don't want to be deprived of information. You want the information. You don't want any gap in your information. Therefore, curiosity. Brilliant one. And I think most of us are curious because of this. We want to know, where did you go? When will you come back? Right? We want to fill up all the blanks all the time. Openness to people's ideas, valuing diverse ideas from others, and so curious as to what you think, right? I am supporting this view. What view are you supporting? What is your opinion about this? Without having to make a judgment on them, simply to find out what other people think, what are their mental models. I'm just learning this beautiful subject called mental models. I hope I have a chance to talk to you about it. A mental model is looking at the world from your point of view. All of us have mental models. So if I am for or against something, it's because of my mental model. If you are for or against something, it's because of your mental model. And if the two of us are in conflict, it's because the mental models are in conflict. And the use for mental models, I can learn from your mental model and say, oh, this is why you think of that like that, right? So openness to other people's ideas, looking at the perceptions of other people. How is it that you are looking at the problem that I am looking at? Both of us looking at it differently. And finally, stress tolerance. Willingness to embrace the anxiety and discomfort. So therefore, curiosity is also about embracing discomfort, right? Because when you're curious, you don't get the answer immediately. And when you're asking questions, it means you don't know the answer. So being in a state of not knowing, right? Being in a state of not knowing, being comfortable with that is also one of the dimensions. Most of us are not curious because we are scared of being in that zone of not knowing. But I'm saying it's fun, right? So I know there is anxiety in not knowing, but embrace that anxiety and stay with that anxiety and say, okay, if I don't get the answer, I don't get the answer. Sometimes, remember, when we are talking, we have one word which is there at the tip of our tongue, but we are not able to express it. Huge stress we go through, right? It's similar to that, but more and more it is about the ability to embrace anxiety of not knowing something and discomfort and all that, right? So these are the 4 dimensions of curiosity, just to help you understand this brilliant tool. Only problem is you need to practice it. Of course, people will be irritated by your new style of asking questions, but that doesn't matter. Most of the things we do for ourselves to improve our own skills. And if you can only put the context to asking questions, this saying, I'm asking questions for this purpose. If you put a purpose to asking questions, You're going to have fun. You're going to start becoming a person who is seeking answers instead of simply being a person who is simply knowing or getting answers. What's the fun in that? So therefore, imagination, curiosity, two important tools for being a biomimic, for continuing your biomimicry journey.